Guys, I'm getting ready to go on a 4-day road trip with some friends from St. Louis to Northwest Arkansas. Guys, my name is Rick and this is the HDVIBE channel. And today's video, what I'm going to do is just spend a little time with you and show you some of the things I do to get ready for such a trip. Again, it's only going to be a 4-day on the road trip, so not a huge long trip. But what I want to do is kind of share with you what I do to get the bike ready, what I carry on the bike, and a few things that I'm going to do to change the bike setup so that I'm most comfortable out on that ride. And we'll get into all that right after this. So guys, now let's talk about what did I do to get the bike ready. So first off, I actually recently just had a 10,000 mile service and I'm about 1,100 or so miles past that. So I got all the fluids changed, a 3-hole change. They checked all the bolts and everything. They checked my clutch. They readjusted. They checked my suspension. So all of the things that go along with a 10,000 mile checkup at your Harley-Davidson dealership. Obviously, you don't have to take it to your Harley dealership. You can do it yourself if you have the checklist, or take it to your local independent shop that you work with and are comfortable with. But essentially, I feel super comfortable because I recently just had all of that done by Gateway Harley-Davidson here in St. Louis. So I feel like the bike is ready to go. But since, as I said, I've ridden about 1,100 miles, what I'm actually going to do is go through and do a good thorough T-CLOCS. So I'm going to check the tires. I know these tires are pretty new. I think maximum they've got 3,000 or so miles on them between the front and the back. So I recently had those changed for not reasons that they had worn out, but there's some other reasons that were covered in another video. But they're all changed out, so I feel good about that. But obviously you want to check your pressure. On this bike I actually have the TPMS, so I can actually check it here up on my screen by just hitting this trip button down here when you have the bike in ignition. So I turn the bike on, and as you can see, I'm getting a low tire pressure warning. If I look down here, my front is at 36, and I think the reason I'm getting the low tire pressure is because my rear is actually sitting at 37. So given that my tire pressure is a little bit low in the back, obviously I'm going to air those up. I like to run 38 to 40 in the back, and Harley suggests 36 to 30 in the front. So I'll go ahead and air that up. But I'll also check to make sure that I don't have a nail or anything in there. As it so happens, I have the wheel and tire protection plan on this. So if I do have a nail in there, I will check it. And if I do, I'll take it to the Harley-Davidson dealership and get a new tire put on this before I take off. So the first C we come to is controls. So make sure all your controls are working well. Are your gauge clusters working? Is your throttle snapping back? Is your brake working and feel appropriate? Is your clutch operating as it should freely? Again, I've had all of this just recently checked at Harley-Davidson, so I feel comfortable with that. But I'll run through all of that, make sure my gauges, all of my controls are working. So L is your lights, right? So I'll go around, turn the bike on, and make sure that my brake lights, my turn signals, my headlights, I have fog lamps on this bike, all custom dynamics. So I'll just make sure that all of that's working. My headlight, and again, I got the Shark Demon 2, and if you didn't see that video, go back and check that. I'll actually have a link to that down in the description to see that Shark Demon 2 on this Road Glide. But let me just check that real quick. So I got my low beams are working just fine. We'll go ahead and switch that to high beam, and I can see over on the wall there, the high beams are working. So lights, I think we are in good shape. That brings us to O, which is oil and other fluids. So I just checked the oil and it was just fine. Again, you want to check that oil. There's a mark on that dipstick for on the Jiffy stand or sitting level. And you also want to check it when it's warm. So I was good when it was cold. I'll recheck it once I warm the engine and run it a little bit and get kind of that set up. So check all your fluids, transmission, primary, as well as your regular oil levels to make sure that you're good for the long trip. And then we come to the second C, and that's chassis, right? So I'm checking my belts, I'm checking the suspension, making sure that my Legend suspension is set correctly for this trip because I will have a little more weight, so I have to adjust the preload. So I'll do a little bit of that. I'll just kind of look around, take the bags off, make sure there's nothing loose. Look up here in the front, check that front suspension, make sure everything is tight there. and we should be good to go. The last one, the S, is stand, right? So your side stand, make sure that that's tight. Make sure that that spring is on there because you never know where you're going to be parking. The other thing I will say around stands, and this is not part of the T-CLOCS, but make sure you bring a side stand puck, because when you're out on the trip, you never know where you're going to be parking. You'd be parking in dirt. You could be parking in hot asphalt. And the last thing you want to do is find your bike toppled over because the side stand went into the ground. So those are some of the things that I did to get the bike ready. So now let's talk about some of the things that I'll pack. And there might be a couple of these that you wouldn't even necessarily think about, but I think it's wise to bring these along as well. Rain gear. A good set of rain gear, I think that goes without saying. Even though the forecast may say it's not going to rain and it's going to be hot and warm, I always take a good set of rain gear. I have Harley Davidson rain gear. The next thing I take, and I usually wear sunglasses, so I always have those, but I'll take a set of clears with me just to have in case I get stuck somewhere at night. I have a tinted visor on my modular HJC helmet, so if I get stuck somewhere at night and I need good vision, I'll put these clears on, flip up my tinted visor, and I should be good to go. The next thing I typically take is a little toolkit, and this is not too extensive, and I'll actually try to find this and put a link. I think I got this off Amazon, but it has all the basic stuff, and this is actually Posse tools, and this one is specific for Harley Davidson. Obviously, I think they have them for Indian and probably for your metric bikes as well, so this is another good thing. It's tiny, doesn't take up much room, and I'll also put that in my right side saddlebag. And another thing that I always carry with me is a portable air pump. This one happens to be by Airmoto. This one works actually really well. It has settings for motorcycles, cars, etc. So you just kind of set the PSI that you want, turn it on, and it'll stop at that PSI. Speaking of tires, and I don't happen to have it handy with me, I got to dig it out, but a tire patch kit is always good too, and those are pretty inexpensive as well, you know, with the kind of little worms where you jam it in, and it'll get you where you're going. Then you have the, like the Airmoto portable pump with you that's battery operated. You can just go ahead and blow that tire up should you happen to get a nail or something, a puncture in it that's small enough that you can actually patch it to get where you're going, to get the tire looked at or get it replaced. The next thing I actually carry, also in my right side saddlebag, is a portable jump pack. This is one that I've featured on the channel in the past. I've got multiple brands. They all work pretty much the same. You got your jumper cables. Typically they have circuitry in them that you can't cross those. And if you saw my video on how to start a dead motorcycle, I actually will jump, if I had to jump this bike, I would jump it off of the starter. So I'll actually have a link to that video down in the description as well, so you can see that. But the other nice thing about these is make sure that they're charged up along with your portable air pump. Make sure they're fully charged before you leave on the trip. And then you can actually, while you're out on the road, if you need to charge up other electronics like your phone or something, you can actually charge off of this as well and get that phone up should you be out somewhere in an emergency situation where you need to get a hold of somebody. The next thing I'll carry also in my right side saddlebag is a small flashlight, right? Well, obviously I need to change the batteries out on this one, but I'll carry a small flashlight in my saddlebag in case we're out somewhere at night, we have a situation, I can put some light on the situation. Also, that portable jump pack, it also has a strobe and a flashlight on as well. So if my batteries are dead on this, which they are, and I'll replace those before I get going here, it just worked a few minutes ago, I'm set to go and have a little bit of light should we get out somewhere in the dark and have an issue. So the next thing I actually carry my right side saddlebag, and this probably looks a little extensive, and it's probably more extensive than what you need, is a good emergency kit. This has first aid materials in it, band-aids, gauze, tourniquets, all those sorts of things, alcohol rubbing pads, and I also have an orange vest in here. If we would happen to get an emergency, I need to hand out orange vest to somebody. And I also have some flares in here. They're buried in there, but if you are out at night or any situation where you're not going to be able to get up and going, some flares could be a nice way to warn drivers as they're coming up upon you well before they get there, to have that. So just packed in this nice little bag, and I think all this stuff came from Amazon. I don't know that I have links to all that, but again, it's just a good first aid kit. Then the other thing people often forget about is, since I have this really open breather on this bike, make sure you bring your rain sock or rain cover. Stick that in your saddlebag so you have it in case of those situations where you do come across water. Obviously, you're going to have your rain suit. Put this on when you put your rain suit on. Don't forget to bring your registration as well as your insurance coverage for your motorcycle should something happen. From my personal experience, I was out in Arkansas 2 years ago and I had someone back into me. Fortunately, it was not my fault, but we exchanged insurance information. If you don't have that card handy or even put it on your phone, a picture of your card or access to that information, it's always good to have that just in case something might happen. I happen to carry all those important papers right in this little sack that I put in, again, my right side saddlebag. Gloves. So I always ride with gloves no matter the time of the season. And these are the ones that you can tell, a little different color. I ride with these almost all the time. I carry a spare set just in case something would happen to these. These are actually getting kind of warm, but they're really my favorites. And I'll actually have these in my saddlebag as a backup. These are actually from Amazon too, and these have got probably 2 or 3 years of use on them, and they've held up really well. And I got a new pair because I knew these were wearing out, but I'll have a link, if I can find it, in the description of these. These are really, really nice. I think they come in black as well as this sort of tannish brown. And they work really well for me anyway. But there's something that I have in my saddlebag that those of you that have had your bike tuned and have your tuner, this is something you might want to put in your saddlebags, and merely I carry it all the time just in case. And that is the actual tuner itself. Should you get out on the road and have an issue, you can load this tuner onto your bike if you have your laptop, or if you have to go into a Harley-Davidson dealership or an independent shop, hook it up, see what's going on with the bike, and maybe you have to reload a map or reload the base map or do something to that. And then along with that, make sure you have all your cables. I carry the cables for that as well if I would have to hook into my laptop to make some adjustments to the tune on the bike should something be running oddly while I'm out on the trip. So that's a lot about what I sort of carry in there. Covered some of the gear, some of the equipment. But again, gear-wise, what I take, there's a couple more items in addition to that rain suit. So obviously it's super hot, and if you can't tell, I'm probably sweating like crazy right now here in the garage, but I actually wear a mesh jacket because it's going to be super hot. And what the mesh jacket does is actually allows air to flow through it. It protects your skin from sun. I know a lot of people like to ride with short sleeve shirts when it's hot, but honestly, I rode in Sturgis last year and the temperatures were close to 110 degrees, and I wore this jacket the entire time, and I was actually fairly comfortable. And what happens is this holds the sweat on your skin so it's not evaporating from the sun, but then the wind from riding the bike actually cools you down and you feel much more comfortable. So I know a lot of people don't like to wear jackets in the summer. I prefer it. I do wear this Harley-Davidson mesh jacket, and I have a few others that I'll ride with. Another item that I'll have, and I mentioned the orange vest that I have in my emergency kit, but I'll take this one along as well. Again, just in case we happen to be riding at night. It's got reflective material on here so that cars can see you should their lights shine on you and reflect upon you. If something happens when you're on the side of the road at night, an incident, you have to pull over, I usually flip this on just so I'm able to be seen that much easier with this high vis as well as this reflective material. All right, so a new piece of gear that I'll actually be taking on this trip is actually this vest. This is actually by First Manufacturing. They recently sent that to me, and I'm actually have become an affiliate with them. So this is actually the Sharpshooter. And the interesting thing about this, I know a lot of people won't wear a vest in the summertime, but this one is actually perforated leather. And it actually has a perforated lining, so it will allow some airflow coming through that. So this is a medium, and I believe they say the medium in this Sharpshooter with the perforated leather, the medium is a 41 to 43. My chest measures about 40 or 41. This fits me perfectly, and I'll be using this on this next trip. So if you are interested in checking out First Manufacturing and their vests, jackets, gloves, all of the sort that'll have that. I will actually have a link and a discount code down in the description, and that discount code is going to be HDVIBE, and again it's going to be firstmfg.com/HDVIBE, and that will give you a discount at 25% off the regular price of this or any other item on their website. So now let's move on to what I'm going to change on the bike for this trip, and I'll kind of walk you through my rationale and my reasoning. So the first thing I'm actually going to change, you see over here I've got a carbon fiber shorty fender from Hogworkz. That is a great fender. It looks really cool, and I'll actually put a link to that down in the description as well. When I first featured this on a video, and I'll put a link to that down in the description as well, but it wasn't released yet. It actually recently just was released, and the price on that for its real carbon fiber comes in at $449, I think, at 98 cents. A super great price for carbon fiber fender. It's shorty. Right now, that's the only style that they have. But being that it's shorty and I'm going to be on the highway, there's going to be rocks and debris that's going to kick up. What I'm actually going to do is actually switch back to my stock fender, because it's going to give me much more protection from stuff kicking up from the tire and the wheel as I'm rolling down the highway. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back to this stock fender, at least for this trip. And then when we get back from the trip, I've got another fender from Hogworkz that they recently released. I'll do a video on that, and I'm going to compare that new fender that just came out to this stock fender as well as to this shorty carbon fiber fender. But this is the fender I'm actually going to take on the trip so that I'm more protected when I'm going down the road. Then the next change I'm going to make, you can see up here, I have a pretty low profile windscreen on that. It's the Memphis shades. That's the 5.5 spoiler. I've got the 6.5 spoiler right here. I'm actually going to put the 6.5 on. It's going to give me another inch of protection, and because I'm going to be out on the highway for long periods of time, this will just give me a little bit more wind protection so that I don't become fatigued from just that wind hitting me. Although I would say the 5.5 actually does push the wind up and over me, but this is just going to make sure to give me just that little added 1 more inch of protection to even push that wind up higher over my helmet, so I'm not having to fight that wind for a long period of time. Then this is another piece I'm actually going to slip on. I've got my 4-point docking hardware on here. I'm actually going to slip this on, and this will actually allow me to utilize the luggage that I'm going to show you here in just a minute to put on there. But this will go on my 4-point docking, just a plain Sissybar, no pad. And that works really well for the luggage setup that I'm going to be running that I'll show you here in just a minute. And then lastly, as far as what changes I'm actually going to make to the bike. So right now I've got my custom Saddlemen step-up seat that is actually pretty narrow in through the pillion. So, and it also is the gripper material, which will absorb water. I do have a cover for that. But for this trip, I'm actually going to go with the Tour step-up. And what that's going to do is actually give me some more pillion space so that I can actually put my luggage on here and not have to worry about it sort of teetering, because the pillion on the step-up is pretty narrow. Nice thing is it does give me, again, good lumbar support here, and the way the luggage I'll have set up will actually serve as a backrest so that when I'm cruising down the highway, I have something to lean back upon, and with that Sissybar holding it, I don't have to worry about that luggage going nowhere, and I have good support, and I can sit straight up, stretch out a little bit as I'm rolling, 4 or 5 hours down the highway and still feel comfortable. All right, so our last topic before we wrap this up and I kind of show you the final product of how I got the bike set up, which I will do at the very end, and I'm not going to bore you with changing all these parts on. I'm just going to go ahead and do that, and I'll show you what I have set up. But luggage. So these are 2 pieces of Saddlemen luggage. This one I purchased a number of years ago, and I've used this on multiple trips. This is the BR, I think 34 or 3600. I think 3400. So it's pretty good size, and this could certainly get you through a week, no problem. Saddlemen was kind enough actually to send this one out to me, and the reason I wanted to try this one out is, one, obviously it's bigger. This is the BR 4200. And then the cool thing is, which this one does not have, this actually has a handle. And then I can roll it just like you had regular airplane luggage. So I can pull it off the bike, pull the handle up, and then walk into the Airbnb that we're staying at this week and roll that thing in here versus having to sort of manhandle this thing around. When it's full, it gets pretty heavy. It does have sort of backpack straps on it, so it's really good. But this, with this handle, these rollers, is really cool. You can get certainly a full face helmet. I can get everything I need for a week's trip in here, no problem. I'll have a link to this down in the description as well as links to the windshield, the First Manufacturing vest, and their website where you can get a discount on that. And anything else that I can find that I have links in to Amazon or wherever they are, so you guys can pick these items up if you're getting ready for a trip. So now I'm going to spend a little bit of time. I'm going to get the bike all set up, and then I'll come back once I get it set up and show you how the bike is set up for this trip. All right, guys, so it took about 15 or 20 minutes, and I got everything sort of set up the way I like it, as we sort of talked about. Let's first start off. I got the Tour step-up seat on there. Again, good lumbar support, and I've got a little wider base for this Saddlemen BR4200 travel pack that I have on here, tail bag. So speaking of the tail bag, again, so you can see that thing is secure. It comes with all the straps you need. I've got it strapped around the back of the Sissybar that I put on there. And if you do want to run this without the Sissybar, there is a piece that goes up underneath your seat, and then you can strap it down to that, and you don't have to have a Sissybar. But I like this Sissybar setup. The back just sort of slides on that Sissybar, clamp it down. There's just two quick release straps on either side. I can pull that off the bike, pull that handle up, and roll right into my Airbnb. So we went ahead and we put the 6.5 spoiler Memphis shades on here, and that is in the black opaque. Again, that's just going to give me one more inch of wind protection when I'm spending those long hours out on the highway. All right, so the final thing I did was I actually changed out again that carbon fiber Hogworkz fender back to the standard. Again, as you can see, it comes way down here, so any rocks and things are not going to flip up and hit me in the legs as I'm going down the highway. So guys, if you got some value out of this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also consider sharing this with your friends so the like-minded individuals who might be thinking about getting ready for a trip can see this video and see what I've done, as well as see the comments down below to see if there's anything else that should be done before you're getting ready for the trip. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button right down here. That really helps out the channel, and I'd really appreciate it. When you do subscribe for the first time, leave a comment down below saying I subscribe so I can personally reach out and thank you for supporting the channel. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon and select all so you do get notified every time I do put out new content. I have over 250 videos on tips, tricks, rides, reviews, installs on these Harley-Davidson touring motorcycles, tips like this, as well as motorcycle skills tips. So there's playlists by product type, by installation, by topic, by motorcycle skills. So there's bound to be something. You'll learn more about a product, learn how to install a product, maybe get a discount code like you would on this First Manufacturing vest that I talked about a little bit earlier in the video. Or you may be able to do this on your own without having to pay that shop labor, and maybe learn something about slow speed motorcycle skills so that you're more confident out on those rides. So guys, with that, I want to leave you with this thought. Life is short. Get out and ride the bike. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye now.